morning, listeners. Good morning and welcome to Uncommon Awareness. It's Tuesday, and we are on the East Coast here. We have had a reprieve from this heat wave. You heard me talk about it yesterday because it's pretty extraordinary, and out west they are getting cooked. And I'm just going to encourage you to do everything you can to keep yourself hydrated but mineralized. You can throw a little sea salt into your water to keep your minerals. You should be taking mineral supplements, but this is one way to stay hydrated in these extraordinary heat waves. My website is www.drhurley.net. It has been undergoing some changes. I encourage you to visit. There's blogs linked to Facebook, but you can also sign up for a free newsletter, and I've been promising it. It is coming out. We had a lot of struggles with the new service and formatting and just getting some material together. I make every effort that the material presented is not commercial. It's genuine education, news, views, and information for personal empowerment. Our guest today is actually someone I met several years ago, and life being synchronistic and what it is, she's been brought back to me through my producers to be on my show today, and I could not be more delighted. My impression of her when I met her several years back was, this is the real deal. Her name is Lydia Brock, and she has a Ph.D. and practices energy medicine. She's a master of energy, an author, intuitive healer, and inspirational speaker with over 20 years of experience in the field of holistic health, both in the United States and in Europe. She was born in Antwerp, Belgium, and she came to the United States in 1986 after having lived in London, England for almost 20 years. As a linguist, she was initially teaching foreign languages to executives in major organizations. Well, then she earned her bachelor's degree from the University of London and her master's and doctorate degree in holistic health sciences, and set up practice as a successful hypnotherapist and psychotherapist. She's published in several American and British periodicals and has a frequent guest on BBC Radio London. Like a lot of healers, Lydia became interested in this work through personal experience, and I'm hoping she'll agree to share that with listeners today. It's posted on the web, so I don't think she'll mind doing that. But she also created the energy mastery model based on the fact that everything at its finest level of creation is energy. She created the model from her personal desire to quickly release blocked energy and unresolved patterns and emotions from the inside out. When blocked energy is released from the mind and body, natural flow is restored and we are able to connect with creative intelligence. An energy drain then becomes an energy gain. She knows from personal experience that this powerful energy then becomes available to manifest and co-create. And listeners, you know we talk a lot about this on this program because this is our time in the cycle of time and history. This is humanity's time to really step into our highest, most profound potential and begin to really understand who and what we are. And the field of energy is actually what's going to take us there. Energy, consciousness, all of these, the concepts go by different words, but it's all the same thing. These tools that she uses will help clear a problem, not simply suppress it. All right, our focus is going to be today on clearing the emotional body. We'll discuss what this is, how it relates to the chakras and what we call cellular non-local subconscious memory. And it's my personal belief and experience that what holds us back from attaining our highest potential and true joy is this underdeveloped and traumatized emotional pattern that we're all living with, because we're kind of in your head society. Well, it comes to find out that's not where it's at. That's not where the true creative power of the soul is. It happens to be in the heart. And Lydia, if you go to her website, her testimonials, she's got numerous testimonials, and her website is Lydia Brock, and that's VandenBrock.com. Good morning, Lydia.
Good morning, Dr. Lorraine. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fabulously well. I'm really excited to do this show because we do talk about it, but we haven't really yet had a guest on that was considered an expert in this field. So I'm really excited that you're going to help listeners to appreciate what this emotional body is and how it is really a pivotal piece, a missing link to actually clearing out the debris and the blockages and helping us to get closer to our higher source. But I'm wondering, what I really enjoy and I think listeners enjoy too, because really a lot of our experts are people who find their way through personal experience. And I'm wondering if you could just share with us, how did you get involved in doing this work?
Gosh, Dr. Lorraine, that's such a good question, and I'm not even sure that I can answer that. I usually say to people, it got into me when people ask me, how did I get into this? Because essentially the creative force is within all of us. And I guess challenges, difficulties in life essentially really, really got me to the point where I simply needed to awaken to not just the knowing, but the real knowing in the soul and in the heart. As you know, you shared with our listeners already, I am essentially an academic. Spent many years essentially as an academic and found essentially that after years of left brain studying and really, really understanding that we are whole beings connected to our divinity and connected to our source, we are essentially such a perfect expression of divinity within each and every one of us. Academic learning just did not make that connection for me. And so probably sheer frustration and probably perfect timing essentially opened my heart and deepened my path.
And I think that's true for most people. It's an unfortunate fact in our life that it is pain or a feeling of emptiness that drives us to seek. Because when everything's going really well, why change it? If nothing's broken, why fix it? But, I'm trying to impress upon people that even if you believe that your life is, unless you really feel experiencing joy and an expansion of your abilities, you really aren't functioning on all cylinders. So I try to encourage people to learn about this somewhat preventatively, because so many of us go down that pain of extraordinary pain, that path of extraordinary pain before we're willing to question our beliefs or rethink who we are and what we are. And, you've done a lot of work with corporate America. And I'll bet, we talk about academicians, but corporate America must be one kind of tough nut to break. But it's great to see that you're out there in the world of corporate America having this influence.
Absolutely. Dr. Lorraine, sometimes I smile when I look at meetings in large corporations where essentially people, I would say, react rather than respond. Most premises are based on fear. Most meetings are run from a place of fear. And if you look around the board meeting, essentially what we see is people, sitting there 4 years old, 6 years old, 8 years old. Essentially the reactivity that took us to places of discomfort when we were children, if they remain unexamined in our mental body, essentially we just keep reacting in the same way as when we were scolded as children. And so we're finding a separation, if you will, that we come from a place of fear and not from a place of wholeness and trust that we are all connected, and choices made from a place of goodness and well-being for all beings is going to open so many doors that we had not even known were there were even possible.
Right. It's a little bit like, and you're not the first person. I read a book a while back called The Presence Process, and he makes the point that our emotional development is in fact arrested somewhere between birth and age 7. Pretty much the world right now is being run by anyone, from infants to 7-year-olds, at least on an emotional level. And we are a left-brain-dominated society, and look at where it's gotten us. It's a very, very troubled world. And right now, we're living in a time in history where we have this very, very wonderful opportunity to break away from old patterns. Now, one of the things that we really haven't had anyone on who's talked in depth about chakras, and I'm wondering, we're going to be going to a break in a few minutes, so we may have to carry it over. But if you can begin to discuss with us what the chakra system is and how it relates to us in our lives. just kind of review. You don't have to get in depth, but just review that for listeners, because this is the area, the energy area that you work in, and I'd like them to understand that.
Sure, absolutely. And just to make sure I'm not being heard clearly, I've put in my earplugs, and I just wanted to check with you, is our connection a good connection, a clear connection?
You sound absolutely wonderful to me. Alex, is Lydia coming in loud and clear? Okay, thank you, Alex. That's my studio manager extraordinaire, Alex, listeners. He's such a great guy.
Hi, Alex.
So you're coming in loud and clear, Lydia. Why don't you review for listeners, because my listeners are pretty aware, but some may not be, and some may not really understand they may know what chakras are, but not understand how they work in the body. So why don't you review that for us?
Yes, chakras are essentially vortexes or vortices within the human body, and they are essentially, the main chakras are 7, and they are essentially positioned along the spinal cord, or as I call in spiritual terms the spinal cord, I refer to as the pronic tube, which is essentially the tube that runs through the central nervous system to bring in the universal prana, or life force, if you will. Now, that prana or life force fuels our lives and spins through the chakras. And a very easy way of understanding it is essentially through breath. Breath is prana, and chakras literally take that breath, spin it, and feed the relevant organs in those particular areas. And so we essentially, for the purposes of brevity and clarity in this kind of situation, the chakras are located in the root chakra by the groin. That is our base and our connection to the ground. And knowing that the ground is the Mother Earth, it is the sacred womb, it is where we need to be rooted and grounded. It is also paradoxically the area in most of us that has remained blocked. The first chakra is, of course, very relevant at the time of our arrival on the planet. And so the thought forms inherited from parents and from the culture is where most of us have not been able to make a clear connection.
Okay, that's a great place to leave off, Lydia. We have to take a quick break. I love that. It's the thought form. So we'll come right back to that after the break. It's 5 minutes. And we will continue, listeners. Lydia's going to let us know what these chakras are and how they help us and how they get blocked. Okay, listeners, we're back. You're listening to Uncommon Awareness, and we're here today with Lydia Broeck, and she's talking to us about her work basically healing our energy body. And we're going to be discussing a program she's going to extend to our listeners throughout the summer later on. But I'd asked her the question to please describe for listeners what the chakras are and what they mean. Some of you may know, but be patient, because it's important for listeners that really don't understand this to kind of realize how this works and why it works. So, Lydia, you were talking about the root chakra, and you made a statement just before we got cut off that this was paradoxically, this is our grounding to the Mother Earth. This is our grounded chakra, and paradoxically, it's kind of where a lot of us get blocked because we're carrying the thoughts and feelings that we've inherited rather than developed for ourselves. Is that correct?
Well, they are inherited, yes, through the cellular memory that is formed, of course, at the time of conception. So therefore, our ancestral belief system, paradoxically, are handed down to us. But with the light of consciousness, these can very effortlessly and consistently be released. And the first chakra is so important because it grounds us and roots us into the earth. And frequently at the time of our birth, of course, we may have experienced abandonment or rejection, early infancy sometimes with parents that may not have been very conscious certainly of our emotional needs, our spiritual needs, and we're probably mostly focused on our physical needs. Those emotional consistencies in most of us did not develop strongly, shall we say. So in our adult lives, we find that many of us have entered relationships based on neediness, based on codependency, attaching ourselves to a person that may not have been the most appropriate person based on our own neediness. So in the first two chakras, I've kind of moved up a little bit from the base chakra into the second chakra, which is located by the navel. We find ourselves essentially out of our own neediness making connections with people who cannot uphold and support us because we have not been able to fully sustain ourselves. And traditional counseling is certainly useful and helpful, but mostly at the level of the energy. We need to clear those early formations, essentially, that have kept us in a place of such neediness for way too long. And, of course, affected our self-esteem. Have kind of moved up into the third chakra now, which is located in the solar plexus. And our self-esteem needs to be anchored in truth and in goodness. And certainly self-esteem has been an issue for probably all of humanity, is not to know our core value. And although we are told, of course, that we are loved, and of course we are loved, we are connected to the infinite source, but to really allow that energy to weave itself, as I call it, and to ground ourselves in this awesome knowing that we are love. We are actually made of love. That is our core substance. And to help us to re-feel and reconnect to that place of love is part of the work that I facilitate and make possible for people.
Okay, so that's the third chakra. And, I recently read something that said that humanity as a whole is evolving. We're going from third chakra, in other words, we've been living with, we haven't been able to really transcend the first three chakras into the heart chakra, which is fourth dimensional living, right, because of these blockages. Correct. So it made a statement that we're kind of living in a time right now where humanity, it's 3.5, meaning we're somewhere between the solar plexus and the heart. And our goal, the goal for humanity right now is to make that move, to move that energy from the lower three chakras fully into this heart-centered chakra. Is that consistent with what you understand?
Yes, and it can be shared in 1,000 ways, Dr. Lorraine. The fourth chakra is the connection to the planet and the connection to the heaven. And so the fourth chakra is located, shall we say, in the middle of the chest. It's referred to as the heart chakra. The color is green.
Yeah, let's hold that because this is really important. And I do have a couple of questions about the lower chakras. And listeners, when we come back, this is really extraordinary information. As I said, she's an expert. She's a master. And we're going to get some really great education about the work she does and the importance of it to our own ability to actually move out of fear and into the heart of the universe. Okay, listeners, we're back. And we're talking with Lydia Brock. That's LydiaVandenBrock.com, VAN space DEN space BROECK. She's a master energy healer, and she was talking to us about chakras, and we're really talking about clearing the emotional body, and it's the essential need for this if we really want to move into higher dimensions in the higher chakras. And she gave us the root, the second chakra, and the solar plexus, the third chakra. So there's grounding, there's essentially relationships, and then there's self-esteem. Is that primarily it, Lydia? And is this, so do these three chakras, and I'll get back to the heart chakra. I'm sorry I kind of got us a little off track there. But these three chakras, these first three chakras, these are generally blocked in people. So do these basically, are these the embodiment of the emotional body?
Yes, perfect. The first three chakras, Lorraine, are essentially to be cleared, and our emotions need to be grounded in truth rather than in falsity based on past programming. And, of course, there's no such thing as you're dumb, because we're in a process of evolution, and the grounding is only going to be complete, of course, once we have fulfilled our purpose here on Earth. As long as we keep renewing ourselves in the lower chakras and live from a place of beauty and harmony. And that's sometimes much easier said than done, because challenging things happen in relationship with neighbors, with friends, in work situations, that we are constantly called upon to come from integrity and trust and honesty. And as we keep practicing that, those old imprints begin to dissolve and fall away. And each time, of course, that we're able to live in our truth and connected to our pipeline, if you will, to really use just a mainstream analogy, our pipeline being our connection to source, each time the vibration increases. And, of course, an expanded vibration automatically brings to us more high vibrational situations or events or people. So that is what has frequently been referred to as the ascension of the earth, where all of us essentially are making the shift into our heart and addressing consistently the lower vibrational energies, so they are no longer creating havoc, first of all, within our physical bodies in the way of health conditions, knowing, and you would know that, Lorraine, that a physical condition essentially has much deeper roots beyond the physical. There's so much written about, the physical condition is the manifestation. It is where the condition shows up that has had, emotional stagnation, mental stagnation in the way that we think, in the way that we feel. Eventually it shows up in the physical, and most of our medical system, of course, useful as it is mostly or almost exclusively focused on the physical, and so therefore it is important to at least become aware what is the trail of energy that essentially has contributed to the formation of a physical condition. Certainly.
I'm completely in agreement with you. And listeners, what we're talking about is by the time something manifests physically, there's been energy disturbances throughout these subtle bodies. We haven't gone beyond the fourth chakra yet, but what happens is that if energy from the pronic tube, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a bit, but if energy is not moving, it comes from the ground up, it comes from, source down, and it's intended to flow freely. Well, if we're blocked, we basically can't move energy. So the finer, the more subtle bodies of our existence become disresonant, and it's when by the time things become physical, we really had an extraordinary amount of disresonance or disharmony or disturbance for a long time. Fixing the problem at the level of the physical only, well, you may get symptom relief for a while, but things will just keep coming back, because this isn't punishment. This isn't inevitable that we have to suffer. It's simply information. If things don't work properly, it's information. Our bodies, so many people that I've worked with, Lydia, feel that their bodies have betrayed them. And a lot of the work that I've had to do is get people to appreciate, no, your body's simply communicating. It's communicating. It hasn't failed you at all. It's going to heal once you understand that this is communication and what the communication is. So I just, So again, let's just talk a little bit more. We're talking about moving to the heart. So most of us on this planet are, and again, I think it's kind of the cycles of time, the karmic loops, if you will. And karma's not a bad thing, listeners. It's just simply the way we learn our lessons. When we're moving energy only within the first 3 chakras, and we're looping it, right? We're going back. In other words, there's a need in the ground in the root chakra, and so we basically default to certain behaviors, or something comes up in the second and third, and we just keep rooting it around, repeating the same patterns. These are essentially define our emotional body.
Yes.
What I have learned, and there was a book by the Hathor, this is a channeled work, is that we can actually, you do the work, you help people, but we can actually do the work of visualizing this pronic tube, correct? And moving energy.
The pronic tube is very real. I like to imagine it as the central nervous system, Lorraine, the spiritual equivalent, if you will. I think in third-dimensional medical terms, the cerebral fluid that moves through our central nervous system is infused with this prana, with this life force. And this human condition, you're quite correct, we have come to the planet with, as I call, our little bag of karma, if you will. The soul is on this awesome journey, constantly wanting to transform every encounter into love. And our karmic inheritance is not a punishment. It is essentially neutral, and it seeks to transform everything into love. And with the light of consciousness that is now awakening within us, it's going to be awesome to see and to take every opportunity as an opportunity of grace to transform what used to be struggle into love. And so initially, sometimes we get a little overwhelmed when many old patterns show up, but to constantly feel the divine connection and knowing that karma is not a punishment. It is essentially a release and a doorway into love as we're able to step into, literally, a higher dimension in this everyday life. Because there is a merge going on, and as we go up the chakras further down the show, there is a merge going on between the spiritual dimension and the physical.
And the heart is that transition point, correct?
Yes, the heart is indeed that transition point, correct.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Lydia. It's just I'm excited about the topic. So once we clear the lower 3 chakras, and this is the work that you do, you really help to, and you actually don't even need to know a person's problem, right? You can actually visualize intuitively. This is your skill. You can meet with someone, or you can talk with someone over the phone, and you get an energy field read on them. This is how you work, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Energy is, of course, non-local, and so whether the person is right here in my office or on the phone, our first meeting, phone or in person, is usually based on, please allow me to take a peek at the energetic network that is flowing through you. And when I see with my spiritual eyes the person's enormous potential, and frequently we've been kind of running around like a little gerbil, around.
Believe me, I feel that way some days.
Oh, absolutely. That is the human condition. But now the points of grace have arrived through the extraordinary new energy that is coming on the planet. where the gerbil, literally can transform into just a beautiful doorway to bring the high vibrational energy to be practical, to be usable, and to help us have the awareness that we can transform into grace.
Okay, and listeners, I think in the second hour I'm going to spend some time talking with Lydia about where these energies are coming from, how they really have to do with cosmic alignments and, cycles of time. But for now, I'd like to kind of stay. I do want to mention, I know that this is something I've only recently learned about, so it's important to help engage you with this. But for now, we're going to stay on the topic of chakras. But Lydia, you just said something very profound, and I wanted to let listeners know that we will go back to that when we're talking about what is actually taking place on the planet in terms of energies being, quote, available. Because, listeners, everything in the universe is alive. You heard me talk, I think last week or maybe the week before, about the noosphere, the mind of Gaia, the collective consciousness. We have energies being downloaded now onto us from the universe through this alignment and these cosmic body gravitational effects, and so we can call it gravity. It's a little bit more complex than that. It's a fascinating topic, and we will get back to that. So we're talking, so essentially what's happening is until we clear the blockages in the first three chakras, we cannot move into the heart chakra. Humanity is in the time of really developing this heart chakra, which is our connection to both worlds. In other words, it's integrating both worlds. Now, do you mind sharing with us what the upper chakras are as well, so people understand this flow of evolution through our lifetimes, what it looks like?
Oh, absolutely, Lorraine. The higher chakras are in the heart, where we're finding the merging, if you will, of the spiritual and the physical. The next chakra up, the human body. And here again we are limiting ourselves to 7 chakras because those are the main ones. There are more, though, throughout the body.
Here we go with that chakra. Here we go with that commercial break again, Lydia. I just don't want you to get cut off in the middle of a thought. So, listeners, we're going to take another break, and then Lydia's going to come back and begin to discuss the higher chakras. She's talking about 7. There are more, but we're talking about the main 7. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll be right back. Okay, listeners, we're back, and we're winding down the first hour of Uncommon Awareness. We're here with Dr. Lydia Brock, discussing healing the emotional body through the energetic movement of our chakras, what this means. And she will be with us in the second hour because we have a lot more material to cover. I was just asking her to ground us in what these these 7 major chakras represent, and how human evolution is if there's an imperative right now, an opportunity imperative to move out of this looping, this cycling through the lower 3 chakras into the higher chakras, or the higher dimensions of being. And the work that she does is to actually move that energy in those lower 3 chakras. And I want to just let you know, she was offering people on her website an extraordinary discount on a very comprehensive evaluation and session. And it's markedly discounted with 60%, and it ended July 15th. But she is going to actually extend that discount for our listeners. So if you go to her website, Lydia Brock, and you click on her home page, you'll see what she's offering. And if you call her and you let her know that you're a listener on Uncommon Awareness, she will extend that discount for you. You can redeem it anytime in 2013. It's an incredible opportunity. So, Lydia, I just wanted to put that out there again. What happens now, Lydia, is we just have a few moments, and then we'll take a top-of-the-hour break, and we'll be back on at 6 past the hour. So if we don't get through the chakras, we'll just continue into the second hour, okay?
Oh, absolutely. Lorraine, such a pleasure to be on the show. It's such a beautiful day and such an easy way to remember our divinity and our beauty, and that everything happens essentially in perfect movement. So thank you for having me and sharing at least some of my own journey with your listeners.
Oh, no, thank you, Lydia, because this is so important. I mean, so many, and myself included. I mean, this is work I've been at, listeners, for quite a few years, trying to understand how we retain cellular memory. It's subconscious. We don't even know that what react means to react. It means to replay something from our history. To respond is to be able to respond, meaning to put history aside. And right now, so many of us are carrying around so much history, not just from our current lifetime, but from karmic cycles that we've been involved in. And this is all about helping us to move into these higher levels of awareness and being. And the chakras are such a profound recognition of what this evolution is. And that's why we're taking the time to discuss them in such great detail. So, Lydia, we're now going above the heart, and if we get cut off, we'll just continue in the second hour. So we're above the heart, and we've agreed that this is the where we connect both to higher states of being, but we're still grounded with the earth, and energy is moving freely from the earth into these higher levels of being. And now we're into the top 3 chakras, and why don't we start there?
Yes, Lorraine, we are resting in the throat chakra for the moment. And incidentally, the human body, the chakra system, has the colors of the rainbow, which I think is just so awesome. And so the throat chakra vibrates to the color blue. And the sacred truth, incidentally, each chakra essentially vibrates to a sacred truth that was wired into us through creation. And so the throat chakra is blue and vibrates to the sacred truth of speaking your truth. And many of us as children either, develop maybe some apprehension and maybe a fear of confrontation or speaking our truth at a physical level that can show up as thyroid issues. So as we work with the throat chakra and awaken the ability that may have been, probably in most of us, to some extent repressed and suppressed, so we no longer just become talking heads the way, so many times when we watch TV, we just see, people talking, and sometimes it's even difficult to tune into what they're saying because there's no connection to the heart.
Okay.
And so let's throat chakra. Go on.
No, the music is playing, Lydia, which means we're taking a top of the hour break. Listeners, we'll be back on at 6 past the hour. We'll pick up with the throat chakra, and stay with us because this is really fascinating. It's the story of our evolution, and Lydia is a master at moving this energy and helping us to acquire coherence between our lower and our upper chakras. So we'll be right back. Thank you for being with us. Okay, listeners, welcome back. It's the second hour of Uncommon Awareness, and I am your host, Dr. Lorraine Hurley, www.drhurley.net. That's drhurley.net. Please go visit the site. Send me your suggestions for shows that you might want to have on the air, your comments on shows that you've heard. Sign up for my newsletter. I work very, very hard to make sure it's of substance. It's not just an infomercial that I send out to people. My passion is to educate you and to help you to appreciate the world that I am learning about. We're here with Lydia Brock. And Lydia, we keep getting, this is synchronistic. We have a caller, actually. Do you mind taking a call now before we move on?
Oh, I would be delighted to, Dr. Lorraine. So go ahead, yes.
Okay, we have Nick from Wisconsin. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can.
I can hear you absolutely clearly. What can I do for you?
I want to know what do you think about us as a nation, as a humanity? What are you thinking on us using the planet's resources, be that water or the oil?
Would that
be a good thing, right thing, or is there some of the resources of the planet that we should not touch, we should leave alone. And what are you thinking on that?
Wow, welcome to our call, and thank you for bringing into our awareness such an important and just unbelievably, amazingly important issue, Nick. It's obvious that we have reached a point where change is not only necessary, but it is inevitable. And it is frequently said that the carbon age has now come to an end. The carbon age, which is, of course, our bodies are made out of carbon. And a transformation, as it is happening, will transform those carbon bodies into crystalline bodies. And so our energy resources are shifting essentially from the more dense resources to more refined. And I certainly wish we would have the time to answer your question. I don't even know if I can answer it unless just very broadly speaking, but yes, the shift in our resources is happening from the more dense resources like oil and carbon to what is going to be wind, light, energy. And so it is our willingness and our awareness to step into newness, which is going to happen, that will essentially sustain all of us on a planet where love is the driving power. And whatever resources, physical resources, will support that remains to be seen. But what an important question. Thank you so much for bringing that into our awareness at such a crucial time.
Right, and I'd like to make a comment. I'm just going to make a comment. There are advances, and there are creative, innovative advances. What we're up against right now, Nick, as the power structures, the present status quo does not want to let go. These are the people at the top, and listeners, I mean this in all sincerity. In the newsletter, I'm going to be citing several sources for this. They are locked down. Some people call them sociopaths. This is not, I don't say this with any derogatory, I'm not being derogatory when I say that. They're incapable, really, of appreciating the consequences of their actions, but they're a minority of the population of this planet, and what is required is that the rest of us begin to honor the water, let's just say, and the earth as being a very sacred, it's a gift. This is a jewel in the cosmos. Yeah. And when enough of us as individuals begin to honor this, when we begin to shift our own consciousness, there will be a tipping point, because there is a collective energy, meaning we can mount an energetic coherence on this planet that will topple this insanity. But we have to take personal responsibility. These things are important. And, Nick, in my next newsletter, I'm going to be talking an awful lot about water and the structuring of water and its absolute, the miracle, the brilliance, the amazing and extraordinary properties of water. If you have a concern with that issue, there are some solutions. So I want to thank you for calling us. And we have to move on with our show. But you have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was an extraordinary question, Lydia. And like you say, we could develop an entire week's worth of programs around that. Just totally. But let's just kind of, because there's other things I really want to move listeners towards. Let's continue to develop the chakras for people. And then I have, at some point, I've just developed a little kind of thing here to help people appreciate where they might be stuck in their energy cycle by giving kind of examples. So why don't you just continue with the throat chakra, speaking our truth, and move along.
Yes, Lorraine, I also wanted to mention, as we stepped into the heart chakra a couple of segments ago, I personally shifted the energy, and so our communication is now infused with powerful energy. You may hear like a slight difference in my voice. It is because I wanted our listeners to actually receive the energy just through simple conversation as our listeners are tuned in, and the energy will remain active if people choose to revisit this conversation at a later time for the energy to be transmitted through what we essentially are communicating during this show.
Thank you, Lydia.
All right. So we are continuing. We've kind of briefly explored the heart, which is the transition point, and in many ways can be said it is the male-female joining of heaven and earth, of thinking and doing, to really become more balanced human beings. And the main ingredient, of course, if you can call it an ingredient, in the heart is love. So we're bringing up the love that we are awakening and that is being communicated through this communication on the air is the throat chakra. And as we, bringing love into the throat and into our communication, we are able to speak from a place of grace, from a place of truth. We essentially let go consistently of blaming, of shaming ourselves, first of all, and other people. And as we make our communications based on love, it's absolutely magical that our own purpose for being here is going to become clearer. So the heart opens, the communication becomes clear. We essentially endeavor to communicate from a place of love, knowing that everybody is love. And all of the learnings that we are truly letting go of, certainly with my help if people choose to work with me, but really on a daily basis by being mindful and by being conscious that we communicate clearly. And if we have not communicated clearly, we just simply start again. You know, the spiritual awareness is such that we can literally begin again in any moment that we have fallen down or forgotten our divinity. And so as we speak, we can feel the energy moving in the throat, healing all the levels, or at least beginning to spiral through the thyroid. Many of us have encountered thyroid issues of some kind. In the emotional body, it would be having the courage to communicate clearly. And that may involve remembering some of the pain of childhood, of, little children should be whatever, I'm forgetting, I'm kind of shifting in a different dimension now, but essentially not giving enough validity to a child's voice. And we are healing that at this moment to really bring in the energy spinning in the throat. And some of you may even be able to feel that. Lovely. That's beautiful. We've actively started working with the energy now. Very good. And remember that whenever we work with a particular chakra, we actually work with all the chakras. So the spiral is coming up from the earth and spiraling into the throat. And we are, as we speak, beginning to repair the old fears, if you will, of speaking and being ridiculed sometimes and not being given a place of importance into an interaction. So we're just taking a moment now and beginning to make that repair for all of our listeners to awaken the awareness that your voice is valid. Good. Good. And the throat is located, as we all know, if we just focus on the physical locality of the throat, it is so important because it's between the head and the heart. And so sometimes the throat chakra has been referred to as the master chakra because as we clear the throat, energetically speaking, we're creating, are we not, a beautiful beam of light between the heart and between the third eye. So let all of us, our listeners, and me as facilitator, creating that bridge between the heart in the middle of the chest and the third eye. Okay, beautiful. So we are making shifts right now as we speak. Like a beautiful beam of light between heart and between head, if you will. Facilitating that passage to becoming balanced human beings. Beautiful. Some of you may actually feel it. And if you don't feel it, it's happening anyway. At levels unseen. And remember to breathe, remember to breathe. Making a connection between Father Sky and Mother Earth.
Okay, listeners, keep breathing, keep visualizing. Lydia's going to move us into the third eye. We're going to talk practically about what may be going on in your life, give you some insights into where you need to move some energy. I want to thank you so much for being with us, and we'll be right back after this commercial break. Okay, listeners, we're back, and Dr. Lydia Brock is walking us through the way energy moves in chakras, and we're now into the higher chakras. We've gone from the throat. She's moving us into the third eye. And if you've missed any part of this broadcast, I encourage you to get the archives because a lot of groundwork was laid in the first hour. It's a very profound topic, something that we really need to begin to grasp because it's part of our destined evolution, if you will. There are some extraordinary changes taking place on the planet. It may not seem like it. It may feel very tumultuous. It may feel very hopeless right now, but it's all part of the birthing pains. So, Lydia, please continue.
Yes. Sorry, Lorraine, I missed your last sentence. What did you say?
Oh, I said please continue. You were engaging us in a visualization of a light, cord going from our heart to the third eye. We've reviewed the throat chakra, and now we're just trying to help listeners appreciate what the third eye means in terms of their energetic functioning.
Oh, absolutely. We are stepping into the third eye, and our listeners are now receiving the benefit of the energy that is moving. The first hour we spent essentially laying some groundwork and explaining what was going on. So we're now into the higher chakras, and so the communication between us is now infused with powerful energy. I've also enlisted the support of our guardians, our angels, and our inner teachers. So as we step into the third eye, which incidentally is located not in between the eyebrows, as many of us assume it to be. It is located in the middle of the forehead. And so the third eye literally is our vision. The inner vision, which up to now may not have been fully functional because of the head and the heart disconnect. Earlier on in the show, I think we talked about all of us have been at some point talking heads. And so now that we are creating the bridge, energetically speaking, between head and heart, we are more able to open and to use our third eye literally as a beam of light on the path. Our inner vision can begin to increase and to show us the multiple angles of our lives and our life's path. So we can expand from the third dimension, if you will, into, excuse me, I have something in the throat, into the third eye, which is of the color indigo. And so indigo shines a beam of light into the expression of your mission and purpose on this earth. As we consistently I call it rewiring ourselves. Even listening to a show like this, we are rewiring ourselves. The low vibrational energy clear, and our connection to heaven and earth becomes brighter and more consistent. And so then we have the realization that we did not just come to the planet to do nothing. We have been wired with a vision and a soul purpose, which because of the head and the heart connection can now really become active and vibrant. So if I may encourage our listeners, Lorraine, to just rest our attention, please, on the third eye, in the middle of the forehead, and we may be able to feel a pulsation as the third eye. It's like a little lens on a camera. It opens to let in more light, which is just part of the spiritual and human condition. So please resting our attention on the third eye, please. And just breathing, remembering that breath, and we are breathing all the way from the ground, Mother Earth, breathing up through the center of the body, which is, remember, your pronic tube. And each time we do that, we are clearing those lower chakras and removing through the center of the body, heart center, the throat center, the middle of the face, into the third eye. There's a vibrant connection in the third eye, now connected to the heart. And so sometimes that shows up for people who may have had allergies, sinus issues, that they begin to clear as well. That is just an additional gift.
Right.
For now,
Lydia,
we're focusing on the third eye.
Yeah, this was a short segment, and when we come back, we'll have a longer segment to wrap this up. Listeners, I hope you're enjoying the program. Believe it or not, energy's moving. I want to thank you for being with us. If you do have a question, please feel free to call us. Oh my gosh, I don't have the number sitting in front of me. I don't have it memorized. I'll give it out when we come back. Thanks for being with us. Okay, listeners, we're back. And Lydia is walking us through the chakras so that we have an understanding of how the energy moves from our root to our crown. And we've been focusing on the third eye. The color is indigo. And Lydia, I'm just going to let you move on, okay?
Yes, thank you, Lorraine. Thank you so much. And I'm just so thankful to be able to make a difference, albeit a small difference. Some of our listeners may feel a shift in the energy, and even if they don't feel it, there is something happening at the deeper level as we are now fully connecting with our spirit. Sometimes it is referred to as a soul merge, when the soul is able to fully access the physical and that we can express our purpose for being on the planet as human beings, to be used essentially. And what a beautiful thing it is to be used in the service of the betterment of humanity, to include ourselves, of course, to feel included into the huge shift that is going on the planet at the moment. And so we are resting in the third eye, and the third eye is pulsating through the color indigo and beginning to make a clearer connection between the head and the heart. We have already created the energetic connection from the earth, and the earth energy is moving up the pronic tube, if you will, the central nervous system, and into the third eye. And we are ready to step into the crown. The crown is literally the crown, like a beautiful lotus flower. It opens up to the heavens. And here again, remembering to breathe. The crown chakra has the color violet and vibrates to awakening the sacred truth of living in this present moment. Now, we've all heard what this means, living in the present moment. What does this mean, and how does it benefit us? Well, it means essentially that when we use the logical mind only, the third dimensional frequency only, the mind is simply basing all its conclusions and its plans on past data. And so we create essentially, we don't create new life, we recreate past life if we live just in this third dimension. And as we open the crown, essentially we're giving access to the energy from the heavens, to your soul energy, as well as the earth energy, to give your soul permission to fully enter into the physical. And that is very powerful, living in this present moment, to feel where you are in this moment and to accept this moment exactly as it is. This moment is so powerful, it is a point of creation. And so by being aware of being in the moment, every spiritual practice talks about being in the moment. And a meditative practice is excellent to help us to just monitor the breath. And we're doing that right now. We're just breathing in this moment. And sometimes in the beginning, there's a lot of interference going on. There's a lot of what I call monkey mind chatting, and we're just allowing that to be so. And so we're opening the crown. Beautiful. Creating a connection to the heavens. Good. So present moment awareness is awakening and then shifting the energy into 1 foot above the head, if you will. And that is your first Stargate. And we're going to rest the energy in the first Stargate. It's almost like standing under a shower of light. And you can bring in a little visual, if you like, to stand under a shower of light. Probably is advisable if you're driving to just pull up on the side of the road. And you're standing under a shower of grace, a shower of light. We're also creating an opening there into what is referred to as the Akashic Record, which is the imprint, if you will, of your soul's journey. And as we're bringing a light into the Akashic Record, the awareness of your soul using all of its experiences to harmonize your life purpose. And we're setting that in process right now. But good. So your first Stargate is about 1 foot above the head. And there's just a beautiful angelic presence surrounding each and every one of us. That has been set in place. But good. And just watching that flow, if you will, of grace moving through the body. Excellent. All the chakras are vibrating and they're all open. And we're breathing and we're receiving. All the organs are now vibrating to their perfect vibration. And just the awareness that even each organ is connected to a planet, that all the planets are within us. Father Sky, Mother Earth, Sun and Moon. We are just simply a macrocosm of this huge macrocosm. There is nothing that you cannot do if you're connected to the heavens and to the earth. Still standing under the shower of grace now. And maybe we can just quiet for a moment, standing under that shower of light in your first Stargate. Beautiful. You're infusing your whole being with heavenly energy. And might be a good idea actually to just be quiet for a moment and allow Dr. Lorraine to escort us into the next break and to stay under that shower of light into your first Stargate. So when we regroup after the break, we can wrap up and
Lydia,
just feel the power and the ability to redirect our lives.
Right.
Lydia, do you agree with that, Dr. Lorraine?
I do, but I so appreciate you bringing the experience. The experiential teaching and discussing is very powerful, and other guests have done that for us. But we've only got a few minutes. This is our last segment before we wrap up. And I do want to kind of ground this for listeners. So listeners, I'm just going to encourage you to stay with the visualization. But what Lydia's been trying, and Lydia, it's so funny the things that you said, because I was trying to think, how do I help people to understand this in a more practical way in terms of their daily lives? And so when we're talking about the root chakra, and how do you know that you may have difficulty with the root chakra? Well, you're struggling to survive. No matter what you do, you're constantly worried about food, money, paying the rent. How do you know you have difficulty in the second chakra? Relationship difficulties. They're chronic.
Addiction.
Right, addictions, a tendency to really self-sabotaging behaviors. What if you've kind of mastered those two chakras, but the third chakra is blocked? Well, you're driven to external validation. There's no internal validation. You may be a highly driven executive or very successful, but you just it's all about externally derived validation if this chakra is blocked. In the fourth chakra, here's what happens: once you are clear of these bottom three chakras, internal validation, connecting to the reality of our higher being and our interconnectedness. What happens if this is blocked? Well, we really aren't feeling interconnected. We're contracted into believing that our ego is actually who and what we are. We open that up. We're now internally validated. We're connecting to the reality of our higher being and our interconnectedness with others. Moving up to the throat chakra, this is speaking our truth. When this is clear and open, we are speaking our truth. This doesn't mean that we run around blaming and shaming, as Lydia said. We exercise absolute impeccability with our words. Impeccability is when this chakra is open. Blaming, shaming, victimization is when this is shut down. The third eye, seeing the truth. When it's open, as she was saying, the third eye, basically when it's open, we understand our soul purpose. We understand why we're here in terms of our contribution towards service and the evolution of humankind. What happens when it's blocked down? Well, we don't have any vision. We may have everything in our life seems to be going well. We have a sense of emptiness. What's the purpose? Hopelessness. All right, this opens up. We're seeing the truth. We feel inspired. Life is a joy. We can't wait to get out of bed. Now we're moving up to the crown chakra. This is, as she said, living in the moment. This is our moment-to-moment connection and guidance in the truth of being. This is when we are completely connected in the moment, the here and now. And this is may seem to be a difficult concept to get, but this is where we're headed. This is where our power is. When it's blocked down, it's as she's saying, we are living in the past, we're repeating the past, or we have fear of the future. We're not. Now, many people can, on the planet, we can get to a highly evolved state, a very satisfying life, if there is movement, but we're talking about not movement, we're talking about a full blown out opening of the pronic tube. Because we can have trickles, right, Lydia? So I just wanted to, as you were speaking and throughout our interview, I kind of came up with that little overview for listeners, because it really is this progression in our lives, and it's such a powerful way to live when we appreciate all the phenomenal resources. And I don't know if you want to comment on that yourself?
Oh, I think you did. Lorraine, this is most amazing. You said exactly what I was going to wrap up with. And so this may actually be, at your convenience, a good time to bring our listeners back in the heart, which has the connection between heaven and earth, and just ask them to rest in the heart and allow the integration of this wonderful session that we had both, intellectually, emotionally, mentally. We kind of addressed all the levels. So I'm feeling really good about having been clear and being of service to our listeners. So whatever you feel you want to wrap up with in the way of people want to get in touch with me, what is available.
Okay.
We can even do follow-up shows.
We'll definitely have you back on because we didn't touch on a couple of things I really wanted to touch up on, and that's how I'll wrap up. I will certainly give your contact information again. Okay, listeners, we are wrapping up today's program of Uncommon Awareness. This has been such an extraordinary opportunity to have Lydia Brock with us today. She is offering, there's a couple of things I'm going to bring up towards the end, but she is offering a complete energy reading and energy assessment. And she'll read you and help you release the energetic imprints of your mind, body, and spirit. She specializes in emotional release, and honestly, listeners, this is where most of us are stuck. We haven't gotten to our higher dimensions of being because our emotional bodies are very contracted, very traumatized. So this includes energy mastery processes. You can use it for yourself, a friend, or a family member. It's good through the end of 2013. It's only $100. The usual cost is $250. We don't usually talk money on the show, but it's just important. It's an over 60% discount. It expired July 15th. She is going to extend the discount for listeners of Uncommon Awareness. So if you go to her website and contact you, and I will let her give out her phone number if it's okay, if she wishes you to do that. But you can contact her through her website. And before I have her give her number and so forth, I just want to say we touched on some things that we actually weren't able to develop. So I would love to have her back on to discuss these with us. There are cosmological forces in play, and on the internet you go and you talk about the Mayan calendar and the end of the world, and there's so much fear-mongering out there. There's so much unclarity and uncertainty about what all this means. We really don't understand that we are part of a larger, a big picture, that we are dearly loved, that we do have guides and allies, and they're dying for us to notice, to pay attention. They're here in service to us. Some of them have lived many lifetimes on this planet. If you don't believe in reincarnation, I encourage you to get David Wilcox's new book, The Synchronicity Key. He does a beautiful job of delineating the science and the research of it, as well as the historical validity of this. So, Lydia, we just had a few moments, so I had to rush through that. I'm sorry for talking so quickly, but what we didn't get a chance. I wanted you to address our humanity's space in the larger cosmology, the fact that stars and planets and everything around us has consciousness, that there really is only one consciousness. And so perhaps you'd like to come on another time, to discuss that. It's very important. But I just want to ask you, do you have any parting thoughts for us before we wrap up? Because we've only got a couple of minutes.
It's such a pleasure to be here, Lorraine, and to communicate with an audience who obviously is on a path of expanding awareness for ourselves and for the planet. Maybe to share with people that if they wish to just briefly chat with me, I do offer a 15-minute telephone conversation at no cost, because I realize it's important to have kind of a one-on-one connection, if you will, before committing to anything. And yes, I would love to be invited back. Those topics are of great interest to me. And so whenever we can arrange that, I would love to be back. And thank you so much for having me on today.
Well, you're welcome. And, just making the point that our outer reality is nothing more than a projection of our inner reality. Everything that's going on in your life right now is really just information. It's basically trying to show you what is happening within your own body, because we are connected.
Yes, so much.
So however we feel, whatever we think, our actions, all of these are going to bring into our lives feedback information. So if things aren't going well in your life, it's not about blaming you. This is just, we're not brought up in a culture that acknowledges or honors this. And Some people would say that this is deliberately being withheld, and to be honest with you, with all of the science and research and validity and the wisdom teachings that are available on the planet, I would agree that there are those that do not wish to see us move as a collective, as a race, into our inheritance, our right. That doesn't mean that we fear them, or if we fall into this attitude of victimization, oh my gosh, look at what's going on the planet. Completely disempowered way of living. You have to step out of that fear, focus on yourself, and realize you'll be guided to be part of the healing, right, Lydia? Yeah.
Oh, so much so, Lorraine. You couldn't, I couldn't have said it better. It's absolutely beautiful the way you phrase it. I think there's also a large element of us repeating because we haven't shed the light of consciousness on some of our actions, and we've become, quote unquote, so busy chasing our own tail that frequently, the day has gone by and we haven't found any little points of light or points of grace where we could actually enter into that portal and make a different choice.
Right. Lydia, thank you for being with us. We're going to get cut off if we don't wrap up. But listeners, look her up. She's on the website. She's extraordinary. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about essential oils and how they work with the energy body. Thank you so much for being with us. You all have a blessed, wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.